G'day. Welcome back. You're here with Neya, your host of peanutbutterneyatime. Okay, so this week I wanted to talk to you guys about your formative years, or just like actually even before the formative years, just like your whole schooling life into you get a job and the whole realm of like working and job hunting. Let's talk about this. So the reason I want to talk about this is just because I feel like when I was younger, I would have really loved to have some of the advice that I'm about to give and just like insights. So here I am. I'm paying it forward and I'm sharing some advice. So yeah, I think let's just be clear. Like I grew up in a very like traditional, I guess like conventional, maybe not traditional, conventional way. Conventional path of education. So I went to primary school, I went to high school, and then I went to university. In Australia, like we don't do middle school, elementary, middle school, and high school. We just do primary school from the age of 5 to 12, 11 or slash 12, and then from 13 to 18, you're at high school. So it's quite the adventure, a lot of experiences. And because of this setup, you end up being at the same school with people for quite a long time. Whereas I feel like in the US and maybe in different countries around the world, some people go to different schools for like 3 years and then they switch. So it feels a little bit more like transient. Whereas I feel we can sometimes be in schools with the same person the whole of our lives. There are private schools where girls go to school, boys or together they go I'm just talking about private schools that are like single sex, from like kindergarten all the way to year 12, which is when you're in 18, which is wild. Imagine just going to one school all your life. Crazy. Anyway, so I ended up going to 3 schools. I went to primary school for the whole time at one school in Melbourne, and then I went to a public high school for 13 to 16. Well, yeah, I was like 12 and 15. And then I moved when I was 15 to another school for the last 2 years. Yeah, and I think like very conventional, kind of didn't really stray too far from the normal path, just did the normal thing. But yeah, I feel like there are things that I wish I knew and I was more aware of when I was younger, going through high school, going through job hunting, that would have really helped me find my path faster as an individual, and not have kind of, I guess, not wasted time. I guess you could say wasted time doing some things that, you know, just were not suited to me. But hey, maybe that's life, right? I guess that is the beauty of life. But I just think there are things that I would have liked to know and been reassured of. And this is not just me being like, this is your path. It's like just being things to be mindful of as you go through those years, if you haven't yet, just so, or if you have kids that are going through that, just so that you can help them have you or yourselves, or you or them, sorry, I'm totally mincing my words, have a better experience. So I think that education is super important and such a privilege to have, but I don't think it's everything. I don't think, especially coming from like Asian background and culture, I don't think it is like the be all and end all. It shouldn't be everything that you are as an individual. And I also feel like, yeah, my second thing is I feel like you should really try to know yourself as early as possible, to really expose yourself to new environments, to be able to understand who you are as a person and what you like and don't like, things like that. There's a never ending like journey of learning, but I think it does help along your journey, especially in high school and university, to have a great sense of self-awareness. All right, so I just wanted to I'm going to talk through this as my, I guess, chronologically of like my experiences and how it went. Let's break it down. So I do think as a whole, it is really hard to grow up and not be defined by your surroundings. It's so counterintuitive in a way, because I think we evidently are a product of our environment. So I think it's, whilst we are absorbing and we're sponges of everything that is around us, we still need to be able to build a filter and understand what to absorb and not to absorb, and to really understand like how that impacts us as individuals, and our ability to really grow. So one of the things that I find really interesting about education and having come out of it now, like all the education part and jobs and just your years, especially I feel like from when you're 15 to when you're 24 even, right? So 15 is like when you start kind of getting into your more intensive classes, things that are kind of helping you pave the pathway to your career, to university. And I think it's, first of all, super wild that at the age of 15, you're supposed to start choosing like what you think you're going to be. Crazy, because you are 15. You've only had 15 years of life. Probably 5 of them actually being like somewhat mature, emotionally mature. Not really. Like, how are you supposed to be 15 and kind of know what path you're taking and who you're going to be and the impact you're going to have in the world? You're 15. That's all I have to say. Even at 18, just so soon. So I think what I think is kind of crazy is that we all go through this very similar education from the age of 5 to 18, speaking very much so towards like Australia right now. And your whole path is kind of paved out for you. You know, you follow year by year. You graduate from grade 1, you go to grade 2, you go to grade 3. You just keep hitting these little benchmarks to help you advance each year at year level. So we really are just, honestly, this sounds a bit sad, but I do feel like we are definitely like in a rat race. And yeah, as soon as we enter the schooling system, we're straight away benchmarked against everybody around us without even knowing it from the age of 5, which is kind of brutal when you think about it. Yeah, so I think it's pretty crazy that we, from the age of 5, without really realizing it, are competing against all these other kids that are our friends and that we're just trying to build relationships with and develop our brains and learn things. And I don't think people realize how, intense that is, that from such a young age, we're already being benchmarked against each other all the time. And I think there are so many different views on education, as there should be. And as we all know, the system that exists is education with exams and tests. Doesn't suit everybody, right? Every kid is different. Every person is different. Not everybody has this brain to be able to memorize and learn a certain way. And there are definitely schools coming up more and more that teach you in different ways. And so I think this brings me to my first point of just really making sure that when you put your child into a school, or you sitting down with your parents and they're trying to choose a school for you, just being able to really choose the right environment to help you thrive and to support you to grow, to constantly grow and guide you along your journey. An example of this was I went to a public high school for 4 years, 7, 8, 9, 10, 4 years. And then I actually randomly applied for a scholarship to this private school. Honestly, I didn't think I was going to get it. It was kind of like an all-rounders scholarship. And I have always been quite a generalist in the sense of like I'm curious about a lot of things, always been involved in a lot of different like subjects, groups, associations, like helping out with a lot of different things. So I just applied for fun to see what would happen. And I actually got an interview. And then I remember we went to the interview and my mum went with me, and after the interview, she was like, wow, okay. And I think that was the first time she kind of realized that I had somewhat of like some potential and like saw me as like a real individual person in a sense, with all these thoughts that she'd never seen me share in a certain setting before. I think she was quite taken away based on what she told me. I ended up getting that scholarship. And yeah, my parents were amazing and supported me to be able to go to that high school, even though we couldn't really afford it. Like they just did what it took, as the amazing parents they are. So yeah, anyway, I went to this private high school, and I definitely felt the difference going to this independent private high school that was definitely a lot smaller than my public high school. And they really focused in on you as an individual, and they really knew all of their students and kind of what they needed. And so I remember when I was signing up for classes going into year 11 and 12, which is like our junior and senior year, our final 2 years of high school, I was signing up for like our normal Victorian certification of education, which is like certificate of education, sorry, which is VCE. And you kind of just pick whatever subjects you want and streams based on what your preference is. And I had chosen a wide range of subjects. And I remember having a meeting with our year level coordinator for seniors at that time. And she was also turned out to also be like the head of IB. So that's International Baccalaureate, which is a program I had no idea about because they don't offer that at public school in Australia. So I was like, oh, what's this? And they were saying, oh, like actually in this you do a range of subjects. It's kind of catered towards students who love to learn about kind of a range of things. And it's just more of like an international like curriculum set up that's a bit more, I guess, global per se. And so she was like, I think you should try this and look into it. And so she said, all the subjects that you're doing cater towards that. The only thing is like, would you be curious in doing an art subject or like music or theatre? And at the time I was like, I haven't done art since like year 9. I mean, I like art, but I don't know if I can do it at like a high school senior level that I can like actually get a score to graduate. She was like, why don't you just try it? And this was amazing because this was the first time somebody actually looked at my skill set, analyzed me as a person, and guided me, like gave me guidance on what I should do next. And having a figure like this in my educational, like my why am I not speaking properly? Anyway, my like educational journey was super important because it made you think outside the box of who you are and kind of the different options. And you need somebody like that, a guide, to really make you think outside of the box because you as I was saying, you are a product of your environment, right? So if everyone is just doing the same thing, us as kids, like, of course we're going to keep doing the same things everyone else does. That's why things become trends. Like, oh, I want those pants because that girl in my class has those pants. Like, you just want to be involved and close to your society and your community. So you kind of do what everyone else is doing around you because it looks like that's what you're supposed to be doing. So really important to have a figure like this who's especially an adult figure to be able to give you that guidance as a third party and really see like potential in you that you didn't really see. So I really, really appreciated this. I ended up doing IB and rediscovering art. I had an amazing art teacher, which also helped as well, who I was like to him, I cannot paint very well. I can paint like at a basic level. And I was like, and I can't really draw that well. And he was like, that's okay. We'll find the mediums that will work for you. And I ended up being really pretty good at photography, like visual arts, etching, sketching, like things that I didn't think I would be super good at, like Photoshop. And it was amazing. I had so much fun in art. It was such a great subject to be doing in like senior years of school because it really opened up a different part of my brain. And I just had so much fun learning something new. So for me, that really paid off. And it was a situation where I felt like being able to have mentors and guides to really ask you the right questions and point you in the right direction really, really helped and changed my path and my course of education. In the same situation, like actually there were girls who did do IB and then really didn't suit them and they helped them move into VCE and it worked out completely fine for them. So yeah, I just think you need to be able to be in an environment that really cares and supports your learning and your growth as an individual. Super important. So another thing that I think will filter into is just like this notion of a score at the end of high school, right? I feel like that's the most daunting thing for so many people going through school is like because you're always being benchmarked, you're doing tests, you're always got this score, this grade just associated to you as an individual. And I think that's the biggest thing when you're coming out of high school is like, are your IB score and your VC score? It's such a daunting experience. And not getting the score that you want, it's really like scary to think about at that time. And I know for me, I was so hard on myself. I didn't get the score that I wanted. But when I think back to then, when I'm when I was younger, I don't even know why I went to that school other than because the others around me, I knew the girls around me were so high performing that would be the school that they would get. That was like what people were forecasting for other people. So I feel like that's what I set the expectation for myself without really knowing me as a person. Is that realistic for me? And this is what I was trying to, I'm kind of alluding to, as being able to know yourself as early as possible. Know your strengths and weaknesses and be okay with them. I kind of wish I, at a younger age, had recognized like, hey, you are not the smartest kid in this room. Like, you're not the most book smart person, and that's okay, right? Like, you don't need to get a 44 out of 45 on IB to really prove yourself and to give yourself self-validation. You need the score that gets you into the course that you want, right? So maybe you're getting into science. You need like a 38, a 40, perfectly fine. You do not need to be so hard on yourself. And I remember in that moment, I was kind of sad because I didn't let myself enjoy my IB score. I got it. I remember opening the envelope and just running to the car, like crying to my mum. And I was crying so much. And my mum, I know she felt it because she knew that the standard of like my classmates in that class and how like the pressure I put on myself. My dad was funny. He was just like, wow, that's so good. I literally thought you were going to get way lower of a score. And that was also hurtful, but it was also funny at the time because I feel like it's just a great reflection of not being so hard on yourself and just really understanding yourself. And it's okay to just not had the same score or like result as others. It's more about understanding why you got that score and if that was okay for you. And it was actually amazing for me because I still got into my course that I wanted with flying colors. Like, I had no issue. So really, I should have been having a party, should have gone and had champagne with my mum and dad. But no, in that moment, I dampened it by the expectations, unrealistic expectation I put on myself based on my environment without really being able to assess who I was and understand that was great for me. And I think that was a trend that I saw, not just in myself, but a lot of people around me. I felt like, we even had like someone come in, our IB coordinator, like had someone come in to do like a meditation class with us because our year level was so intense and like freaking out about scores because everybody in our year level was so high performing. And that was just producing a very stressful environment where we just were all super supportive of each other. But I mean, it makes you think deep down, like, is that how it should be, right? Is education should be putting that much pressure on you? Should we all be comparing ourselves against each other? No, we should be comparing ourselves against our own real skill set, right? Yeah. So that's how I feel about high school. I felt like from my experiences, I really wish that I was able to be less hard on myself and really listen to myself more of who I was and what suited me. But I was super grateful to have really awesome mentors in like my art teacher and my IB coordinator who really didn't make you feel bad about being who you were and like understood us as individuals and tried to offer us as much guidance as they could as possible to really help us explore our strengths and our weaknesses. Okay, stopping for a peanut butter break. Just a quick fact today. Did you know that Jif, so J-I-F, Jif, like this, I'll comment on this later, but Jif sells $1.8 billion of peanut butter a year. Isn't that wild? I don't even like Jif, but just saying, that's pretty crazy. The average consumer loves Jif. But also, is it Jif or GIF? You know, G-I-F, J-I-F. I always call a GIF a Jif, but I'm pretty sure it's a GIF. Or is it GIF? See? Confusing. I can see how if people were learning English, it's just so confusing. Feel sorry for them. All right, back to the pod. And then I think we'll talk about uni now. So university is just such a different ball game. You know, high school, you're kind of in a environment with people who are super similar to you. You're all going through the same experiences, and suddenly you're in university and there's kids from all these different high schools and everyone's playing this like, what high school did you go to game? And you encounter so many different individuals, whilst also you're supposed to be starting this new stream, this degree, and going into this stream that's supposed to be feeding into your career and helping you get a job at the age of 18. That's all I have to say. Really, it's a lot of pressure. I think it's crazy. But it is life. And I think, yeah, no way better than just to do it. And so, yeah, I think uni was the time that I kind of realized, I remember having this moment of realizing like, oh, you need to be really like super interested in what you're studying, or if you're not super interested in it, you have to be really good at it and like should have a skill in it to do well. And I would like to say I went to science. After I finished high school, before I went to university, I actually took a year off, so I took a gap year. And this was the most insightful time of my life where I really learned so much about myself at the age of 17, about who I was as an individual. I got to see myself in a work situation. I'd worked before at like a gelato place for a while, but it was really good to be on my own, living alone, getting independent, growing up. And I think it did wonders for me, especially coming out of high school. And it was really good to have this time to really understand who I was, as opposed to just thrusting myself straight into university, where I think I would have been probably even worse off. I think I came back from my gap year really having a stronger sense of who I was. And it made me be able to make big decisions in university that were not easy a lot faster. So I went into university in a science degree, and just making it clear, yes, I had grown a little wiser, but I was still very naive. I had watched into the internship on the plane home, I think from England, where I was in my gap year, and I was inspired by this, obviously now as I know it, very big Google advertisement for the movie The Internship was just all about Google. Anyway, so I was like, oh my God, I want to be a software engineer, which is actually great foresight because technology was thriving. But I was super inspired by that movie. So I chose my major for science to be computer engineering, which is crazy wild, guys, because this gal, she not a mathematician. She ain't no engineering gal, okay? But anyway, these are the life lessons that you go through when you don't accept who you are sooner, but they are lessons that help me along the way. So I go into computer engineering. I do calculus 1. I did like foundations of like coding, Python. Oh my God, no, not for me. I can laugh about it now. I failed that class and I failed calculus. And I remember my mum just being like, are you okay? How is university going? And I was like, yes, I think so. Computer engineering is not for me. So I switched to geology for another semester. Did field trips, studied rocks, and I was like, you know what? Not for me either. And I think the good thing that I had taken from my gap year was understanding myself better and being able to just make decisions to try different things and not keep barking up the wrong tree, as like that's slang term. But yeah, I didn't bark up the wrong tree for too long and I just got on with it, right? I didn't beat the dead horse. And so I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe science isn't for me. And I tried to switch degrees and I ended up switching into law, which suited me way better. And I had to go to a different university for that. But I had to go through such an ordeal of all these like switching universities and like switching courses that it really made me realize, oh my gosh, I really wish that I had thought a little bit harder about the degree that I went into and whether it really suited me before I had done all that. In hindsight, I'm really glad that I did it so early, and I know it was a good decision to not waste like trying to finish a degree that I was not going to be good at / get a job out of because I wasn't passionate about it. But yeah, I think there's twofold to this. One, I was really glad that I went on my gap year, that I was able to understand myself better, that I was able to make decisions to switch university. But at the same time, I wish that I did have better career counselling in high school that did guide me down the right path for degree, but also wish that I had thought harder about that and been more mature about understanding what really was right for me. And I think maybe most of it's to blame on myself, just not being like emotionally and mature enough to really decide a good path for myself. But in saying that, I would like to say life is for learning. I was only 18 and 19, about that age. So I think good lessons to learn early on in life. So I would say I think high school and uni was a little bit stumbly for me. I think I was slowly accepting who I was, breaking out of this mold of trying to be like everybody around me, being really influenced by my peers and the stages that they were at. And I think when I moved into working was when I really started to thrive and not care so much about my surroundings. So I think coming out of university, I definitely played the same game as everybody else, which was like, all right, let me apply for PwC, EY, like Deloitte, all this stuff, right? Want to become a consultant, blah, 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 like want to do accounting, want to do be a lawyer, do the internship. And by doing these things, I was getting stressed out about it, even though actually I didn't really have a strong interest in that at all. It's just what I thought I wanted because all of my peers were applying for that. And it's that constant like going back to that pressure of, oh, I'm going to do a science degree because all my other peers are doing a science degree. It seems like the right thing to do. I got the score for it. Moving on to work. Oh, I'm going to apply for these jobs because it seems like that's the hot job to have and everybody wants to actually do that. And I think I was still failing to like sit back and really and accept like and analyze who am I, what am I good at, what do I want to do. And I think the thing that really helped me do that and break me out of that shell was traveling and working. So I worked uni jobs I've worked jobs ever since I was 15 and they were great. I did sales roles. I did call center jobs. I did labor jobs where I would like make drinks and juices. And it was so good for me because it really made me learn about myself in different situations and what I liked and I didn't like. I can tell you right now, I do not like sales. Not for me. I'm not a good salesperson. I have to like truly believe so deeply in the product to be able to sell it. I can't do like fake sales. It's not for me. But it was great being able to work in different jobs and to really learn about who I was very, very quickly and put myself in, those real situations with strangers where you need to think on your feet, problem solve, build relationships with individuals. And it was super, super eye-opening. The other thing was traveling. I think the later years of my university, I just started traveling more and more every break, doing like work integrated learning overseas. And it was really, I just started to kind of follow my intuition and my interest, I think in the later years of university, which really allowed me to see new ways of learning, see new angles of myself as an individual, and start to think outside of the box as to who I wanted to be and what the paths were that I could take. And I love that. I think it was so important because it really, at some point, and I can't tell you exactly specifically when, it suddenly gave me this ease and this comfort of, I don't need that grad job. I don't need the grad job that everyone needs at PwC. I don't need that grad job that everybody needs at that law firm. I am okay with not getting that grad job, and I'll be honest with myself, I probably won't get it because I don't have the scores to get it and I don't have the experience and I'm not a standout like law student. I think that was like my honest feedback to myself, and that was okay. But what I thought more was like, I'm not stressed out by that because I've seen the world relatively. I've worked in different jobs and I know what I'm good at. I know what different roles people can go into and what different paths there are. So it started to scare me less and less to not go down the path that everybody else had been down, which I think was really important and a really big breakthrough that I didn't realize at the time and when I was that age. And so I think that led to me to the grad role part of my life and actually like finding a job. And one of the big things that impacted that was meeting the love of my life, Alex. And I met him when I was overseas traveling, taking the plunge of my life, following my intuition. I met him, followed my intuition, got into a great relationship with somebody who lived abroad, which opened up new worlds for me. I ended up moving overseas and getting my first job in Myanmar, out of all places. Can you believe that a Melbourne-born kid, Australian educated the whole way through, ended up getting her first job in Myanmar at a research and advisory firm. And I think working life is where I really came into myself, and that end of university where I finally realized that I didn't need to be like those around me and feel pressured, is where I really came into my like full stride of my formative years and really being able to dictate who I wanted to become and who I was, and not being scared to move outside the box. And so yeah, since then, every job that I've ever gotten has been through networking, through communication, just being in a mindset to say yes and not being afraid to live into who I am as an individual and my intuition, and not being pressured by those around me. And I think since like the ladies' years of university, I've definitely cared so much less about what people think or what other people are doing, because I know that each person's life is such a personal journey that it really doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. It really matters what you do for yourself and what path you choose to take and the journey that is. And so, I think in my working life, I realized that it's so much about who you are versus like a score, and like it's so much more about what you've experienced. And at a surface level, people always judge you of, what school you've gone to, what your score was. Like, great, that's really brilliant and flashy on a piece of paper. But when people actually talk to you and you get into a workplace, you need to be able to, have something to bring to the table and really be able to utilize those skills. And I've seen so many book smart people come into jobs or interview for roles and just not do well at like showing who they are, or just doing well at the work, because they have poor communication, they have poor critical thinking, they lack teamwork and collaboration skills, or purely they just haven't had enough experience. And so I just feel like there's just no point being the smartest person in the room but the worst communicator, or the worst actual person at implementing and applying work, right? I just think, yeah. So I would say that I think that myself now, my advice to my younger self would really be like, take a deep breath and step back from the situation and really spend some time alone thinking about who you are. Beyond that, also like keep putting yourself in new situations that are not your like norm, right? Don't keep going and doing the same sport as all your other friends just because they're doing it. Don't have to force yourself to be in that class because your friend is in that class. Like, go out and try different classes, try a different sport, be friends with lots of different variety of people, and work from a young age. It really, really helps to have experience. You learn very quickly how workplaces are, workplace politics, communication, and it sets you up really well to be really, really, really effective in an actual workplace when you want to get a job. So yes, I've said a lot today, but I think all in all, education is really important, but it's not everything. Experiences in life are amazing. The most eye-opening experiences are through like traveling, through interactions with other humans, and through really putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. And on top of that, I think it's super important to have really great mentors in life, saying yes to conversations with people who are different from you, being able to look up to more experienced people like my teachers who were able to guide me down a path of the person that I didn't think I was, and really tap into different avenues of your brain and your personality. But yeah, I hope that this was somewhat insightful for you guys and you liked it. You guys can always share on the DM on my Instagram or on this YouTube video, or wherever you feel comfortable doing it, probably my socials, about what you want to hear from me, your opinion on this podcast. Would love to hear it. Thank you guys so much for listening. Bye.